small excerpt, 30 seconds. Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm going to show you. This is very good now. I can actually show it because this is very important, and I think I want you to listen to this very carefully. Now, the man that comes next. Listen very carefully.
Möge die helle Flamme unserer Begeisterung niemals zum Erlöschen kommen. Sie allein gibt auch der schöpferischen Kunst einer modernen politischen Propaganda Licht und Wärme. Aus den Tiefen des Volkes stieg sie empor. Und zu den Tiefen des Volkes muss sie immer wieder herniedersteigen, um dort ihre Wurzeln zu suchen und ihre Kraft zu binden. Es mag gut sein, Macht zu besitzen, die auf Gewehren ruht. Besser aber und beglückender ist es, das Herz eines Volkes zu gewinnen und es auch zu behalten. Das deutsche Volk ist heute...
Chilling message there, very chilling. You know. But this guy understood. It's not, you know, it's not arms and rifles that can convince. It is a message. It is once you make people understand that your way of thinking is the right one, they will do anything. And really, what we're doing as advertisers and designers is, in a sense, is exactly the same. You know, we're trying to convince someone to buy something. You know, yeah, you can put a gun at their head. Buy this. You know, they might buy it once, and then make sure that you never do it again through whatever means. You know, but convince them that it is a good idea to buy this. They will buy it over and over and over again. And one such example are our friends at Apple. You know, their products aren't particularly good in terms of technology. It's a very closed system, it's very expensive, but it looks pretty, and they probably have one of the most fantastic advertising campaigns as well, which makes you want to buy this stuff. It makes it a desirable product. You know. They're convincing you it is a good idea to buy their products. No, they're not using the sledgehammer approach, you know, like Microsoft does, you know, and others, you know, who basically say buy this, or you're going to be a minority. You know, but, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, so going back to those chaps, obviously they done the same thing, and they done it with typography as well. Today, well, black letter type was at the time of the Nazis considered to be very much the German type. It was their corporate identity. The black letter comes in different, you know, in different forms and shapes. You know, this is kind of like the more traditional, nearly kind of like Fraktur style. This is a more kind of contemporary style of black lettering. Personally, I believe black letter is absolutely beautiful, and I want it back, you know, simply because it's such beautiful type. However, 1941, someone whispers into the Führer's ear that black letter type is also used by the Jews. You know, one particular style, the Schwabacher. And from that day onwards, they changed all the literature. Instantly, black letter type became Jewish type. And after that, after 1941, the vast majority of official publications were done in Roman type. Such is the power of typography. Pretty good. Right, now, got another little presentation, and by the way, if you have any questions, just simply ask, yeah? Here we go. Someone they found it, here we go. Yeah, got it somehow. Please, bear with me. Yeah, now, before we just had a small introduction about type, the history, and how type in the context of history, how it is quite an important tool for branding and for corporate identity. I want to go a little bit into a different field now and show a little bit what we're doing at our studio and the process of designing a typeface as well. Quick introduction about myself, really. I'm from Switzerland originally. When I was 16, I did an apprenticeship as a typesetter in a newspaper, the Tagesanzeiger, one of Switzerland's, well, the largest daily newspaper in Switzerland. And I was lucky because I got to learn metal type, phototype, and then digital type. So it was just that transitional period, late 70s, early 80s. So I really got the whole gamut of type compositing. Being in a newspaper, I was also exposed obviously to printing processes and all that sort of stuff. So I really got an all-round introduction into the whole printing industry, which now really helps me. Also, as a designer, it really helps me to understand how things are done. When I do my creative processes, can I actually do something? Can I actually print it? Whatever my idea is. And but I remember one of the things that stuck with me is that as first year apprentices, every Friday we had to go empty all the paper bins because you would do paper recycling. And on Friday afternoon, it's a process that takes you 10 minutes to do, but of course you take 2 hours. And you go down into the bowels of the printing press. These are massive news presses, rotation presses. They're something like 20 meters long and about 8 meters tall. They are massive. And we would wait until the machines start rumbling. And that is a sight to behold, I'm telling you. You get a printer that's feeding the paper through the press, and then they start rolling it. At first, very, very slowly, twiddling all the various knobs, getting the color right, getting the moisture right, the temperature of the room and everything. It all has to fit precisely. It cannot be too dry, otherwise the paper snaps. If it's too wet or it's too moist, the ink won't take on the paper. So it's a total precision art and science to get this right. Anyway, so it rolls and rolls and rolls faster and faster until it's at roughly about 10 to 15,000 prints an hour. And the whole thing just vibrates, the whole building. And we would stand there and we'd go and go like that, literally. This was brilliant. If you ever get to go to Wapping to some news press, go in the middle of the night when those presses roll at full speed. It is an experience. It is absolutely fantastic. This is what printing is. This is about getting news out. Wikipedia, Facebook, fuck off. This is no experience. You sit isolated in front of your computer and all you do is communicate with some plonker somewhere else in the room who you've never even met, who probably could be someone else than they're actually pretending to be. Get real. Do something real. Anyway, I did my apprenticeship, then worked a bit on the job, and went back to do education. I studied design, typography and graphic design, Basel School of Design. And then I came to England to work for Monotype, here in England as well as in Chicago. Came back to England and started up my studio. And and a lot of the type that we do spawn at the EFRA, having big arguments about how a serif should be formed. This is usually after about 2 bottles of wine. So these discussions are important. Whether a serif should be like this or it should be like that. Very important because it affects everything. Anyway, when I first started off, I did it all myself, obviously, from the back bedroom. In the meantime, we have grown. Actually, this is not even up to date anymore, I just see. There's one person missing here. No, it is up to date. It is up to date. So we are now 15 people in London and 2 people in Brazil. We had an office in Cairo as well, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But it's quite enough actually at the moment. And In the meantime, we're doing huge corporate projects, obviously, and we're doing our own stuff as well. And yeah. We do a lot of our in-house fonts. This is something we're really pushing hard. And one of the main things we're doing is now moving into the Arabic market as well. We're going to have just about in the next couple of days releasing our first Arabic font. We have done some corporate stuff, Arabics. I believe, whilst the Latin market, Europe, US, is still important, and obviously they're still happening in this world, the developing world, Brazil, the Arab world, India, Russia, and China. Those are the market where it's really going to happen, and particularly the Arab world. I have great faith in this. But the moment, of course, you start dealing with these environments, it's a whole different ballgame altogether, because you haven't got a clue what you're looking at, really. So you need to do a lot of kind of research and development and talk to people as well. Other fonts, there's another Arabic. We're working at purely text font. Well, the previous one, this one, is more for headline environments, and you can see it's quite a strict Kufi style, so it's very vertical, very horizontal, primarily for the headlines, signage, that kind of environments. This is more of a NAS style, so it's more flowing, and it is primarily for text usage, small sizes. Another font we're coming out with in May, I believe, which we did originally for Virgin Galactic. Now Virgin, I've never seen as tight a client as Virgin. Unbelievable, If you get asked by them to do work, reject them. They just want you to work like a slave, and they're not prepared to pay you anything, Just tell them to go away, honestly. We did the font, and we did just caps, lowercases, and numerals for Virgin Galactic, so they can put their thing together in 5 weights. It's a fairly easy style, but it still took a fair amount of time to get it done. 500 quid they paid. 500.
Bruno, you're on film, mate.
Honestly, it's unbelievable. It did my head in. And they wanted exclusivity. I said, yeah, you can have exclusivity 2 years max. And then it comes back to me, and then I flog it myself. And they said, yeah, okay, fine. After 2 years, and they still wanted exclusivity, so I said, okay, you can have exclusivity. It's going to cost you 20 grand. Because that's what the job would have cost in the first place. They didn't want to pay for it. There's nothing to them. It's nothing. Fine. I'm going to sell it. We're developing it now. Full character sets. With the Greeks, the Cyrillics, and everything. And the developments, you've seen the team was quite big. This is the view we're going to have as of April. We're moving studios. Still in Brixton, at Blue Star House, opposite the Academy, 9th floor. Fantastic. I took the studio primarily because of the view. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it's massive as well, so I like that. Anyway, let's get a bit more serious. Shape My Language was also the title of the exhibition I'm currently having at the Design Museum, so go and have a look if you happen to be down there. But Shape My Language really refers to the fact that today we cannot think of a single language anymore. And I'm seeing that quite often here in the UK, that people, designers, are so Anglo-focused, they don't understand that actually other people on the other side of the planet speak a different language, and they have different letters. It comes as an absolute revelation to them. So Shape My Language is all about that, understanding that other people in other parts of the world actually do think differently. And as part of the globalization that we're seeing, obviously facilitated through modern telecommunication methods and changing market structures, we need to be prepared to be able to communicate in those markets, in their language. India, for example, is very good. Luxury goods are advertised using English. Day-to-day goods have to be advertised and marketed in the local language. Now, India in itself has 250 different languages. covered by 10 different script systems. So you can already see the task ahead for anyone who wants to do business in India. China wants to be communicated with in Chinese. You don't even have to try to start doing it in English. They're just going to reject you completely. Chinese has 8,500 characters. That's just basic Chinese. Then you get like the local variants. So all in all, with all the variations, accounting for all the various language areas as well, you end up with about 30,000 different Chinese characters, which you have to design and engineer into form. A mammoth task. One of the reasons why today we still haven't got that wealth of Chinese type that we can see in the Latin type. Anyway, Ubuntu project. Ubuntu project is really nice. Ubuntu is an open source operating system based on Linux. It's been around for ages, but it's been mainly, or the whole open source thing is in the domain of the techie heads, the geeks. And same with Ubuntu. And up until recently, I hadn't even heard of Ubuntu. And it was totally impenetrable to anyone who hasn't got like a technical understanding. Geeks like to do command-style Windows, terminal-style Windows, to do everything, because it's the way they think. The guy who runs and finances the Ubuntu project said he wants to make Ubuntu a serious contender to Apple and Windows, and actually make it a mainstream operating system. And in order to do so, he understood that the branding for Ubuntu had to be updated, and the user interface had to be as good as that of Windows and Macintosh for it to be a serious contender. So now, within all that, the Ubuntu team, they started working on this, and it was decided to have a system font suite as well. And we're still working on it. We've been working on it for about 12 months already. And we still probably have about another 3 months of work ahead of us. So anyway, it's a huge piece of work, altogether consisting of 13 different font styles. Everything in Latin A and B extended, meaning that you have Eastern and Western European languages covered, some African languages, and partially Vietnamese as well. Greek polytonic. Polytonic allows you to do classic and academic setting in Greek. Normally in day-to-day communication for a corporate client, you would have monotonic Greek. And Cyrillic extended, so that's obviously the basic Russian stuff, but it also goes far out east, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and whatever stan, pretty much everything. With these three script systems, with the coverage that we have here, you're communicating with approximately 3 billion people on this planet. So that's huge power, relatively little effort, massive reach, massive. The 4 base fonts, regular bold and the 2 italics, will also get Arabic and Hebrew, which we're in the process of doing now. So instantly you're adding another billion people to your communication reach. And everything will be fully hinted, meaning made good for the screen. So, how did we arrive at the design? So this is a little bit about process, actually. And so the first thing, the brief basically to us was, okay, we want a system, an operating system font, therefore it has to work well within a user interface environment. So it has to be highly legible, it has to be clean, highly accessible at various sizes, etc. It has to also feel, from a stylistic point of view, expression, contemporary, modern, timeless, all that sort of stuff. So we sort of start working up a whole range of sketches, and eventually these 3 designs we presented to the client. And during the design process, we always made sure that, almost like in a live environment, when the designer was drawing the letter, it would actually show up on the screen at various sizes as well. So continuously you could double check, how does the font perform on the screen? Whatever he does, whatever drawing it is, how does it perform on the screen? Even down at the smallest sizes, 7 point, so that's about 9 pixels per m square, so that's about 5 pixels x height, thereabouts, all the way up to the larger sizes. And based on that, as I say, we came back to those 3 variants that we were showing. Eventually, one of the versions was chosen, and this sort of like was the initial of the design. You can see it runs slightly narrow, and then the slight narrowness allows us to have a higher letter count per line, quite important within the UI interface, UI environment, where you just have a limited amount of space to present your words. And we were also thinking in that context about the languages. English is a fairly short language in terms of words. But think of German, for example. Think of Czech and all that sort of stuff, which has longer words. So you need to be able to have a high letter count on those environments. High X height, this is probably around the 72-73% mark of cap height. This compensates for the narrowness, so it means we get white space on the counter. White space is good because it allows legibility. Small little details like this here, for example, that you usually do that on a design anyway. You can see how the curve of the G is lifted off the baseline as opposed to the O, which actually sits on baseline. This is to allow me to have more white space here. You find that in pretty much every typeface, particularly the bold weights, that the G sits higher. And again, it is to allow white space, particularly when used at small sizes. In a display environment, it's absolutely not important at all, because you have white space, it's large. But when you go down to 8 point, 7 point, 9 point, that kind of like sizing, white space becomes crucial for legibility purposes. So this was the initial that we chose, or that was chosen, and then we did some refinement work. One of the main things you will see is this area has changed in the end, where we have here traditional crotch area with this white space. We found that when we looked at it on the screen, that small space just completely disappeared. So we decided to actually get rid of it altogether as a design feature and make it flat. And this allows us a much cleaner display on the screen. It has a slight effect, obviously, on the texture in print and potentially the legibility, because it's not what you would term a shape that you are used to read. It's the other version with the crotch is really traditional shape that we used to read. But I don't think it is really an issue in terms of legibility. People get used to it. Reading habits change with generations as well. Whereas my generation, we like to look at traditional type, printed type ideally, whereas your generation, or the generation of my son, who's a teenager, is quite happy to read off the screen, is quite happy to see different letter shapes as well. So reading habits change. So therefore I don't think this is an issue. Carry on, refining the design. Obviously that feature of the crotchless letter forms carried across here and here. The M is slightly splayed in a very humanist fashion. The whole typeface is a humanist sans serif, as opposed to the grotesque sans serif. The grotesques, like Helvetica, Universe, Accidents, they claw in and create closed letter shapes, which is actually detrimental to legibility. Humanist fonts tend to be open and have much more white space. Also have like more varying proportions within the letter forms themselves, whereas grotesque fonts are all very much kind of like uniform, like soldiers. And all diagonal characters, or all diagonal strokes, like the M here, they're all slightly curved, and that gives us on the page, in the print, a very soft texture. You can't see, obviously at 9 point, but this has a curve. But you kind of like pick up on it. It just creates a softness that otherwise wouldn't be. It would otherwise, if it were all straight, it would have a stiffness, a hardness about it. But with this curving, you soften it all off, and it creates a design feature as well, a unique feature to this typeface. This is just some more further development work we did. Very small details again here. The difference between the crotched and the uncrotched characters. And there's a couple more. they're so tiny you can't even see them anymore. You can't even remember anymore what they are. But this sort of stuff, you know, we created a whole set of different like tiny little design details, printed them, tested them on the screen and everything to make sure we get absolutely right look and feel and the right functionality as well. Because functionality is everything in a typeface. You know, I'm a great believer of functionality. I don't believe kind of like fancy type and all that sort of stuff. I believe in the words of Adrian Frutiger, who says a typeface has to be read, not seen. You know, and it is very much the case. You know, the most successful typeface is that which you don't recognize, which makes it a shit job for me because my work never gets recognized. People just use it because it's good. It's quite satisfying as well. Anyway, this is sort of like the final design, basic character set, and then, if I'm not mistaken,